Mary Iodele. I am a prophetess in my community, and I offer wellness consultations, and I'm a community herbalist. I'm an all-around root woman, and for those of you familiar with African American folk medicine, you'll know what that is and what that means. It means I do a lot of things to help a lot of people stay intact. I want to honor everyone here today and honor our ancestors who helped us or who brought us here, actually. And I want to honor the soul contract we're keeping. Nicole asked me to speak, and of course I said yes because Nicole does a lot of work to do good things for not just herself, but for the communities that she touches. And the one thing I want to share with all of us today is that we are keeping a divine appointment. We have done this before, be you atheist, agnostic, Buddhist, Wiccan, Christian, neo-pagan, whatever your inclination may be for spirit, we may agree that there's something animating us besides our own consciousness. And even if you don't believe in that, you got to know that the few people who came here today to hear this information, out of all the thousands and even more that are exposed to this opportunity on Facebook, sets us aside as people who see ourselves as leaders or helpers in our communities. I want to dispel any inclination to think that we're not up to this challenge. We have faced this before culturally. We have faced it before environmentally. We have all gotten to this call through someone in our bloodline who had to face empire and who overcame the threat of fear and extermination. So we're here today, and we're going to pull through. And I want to give you a couple of thoughts to take us where we're going. I think it's important to remember who we are and not give in to the fear pornography that floats around us that tells us that we may not be able to survive whatever we're facing. Clearly, we have it in us to do that. Also, I'd like to encourage you to remember where you come from and to reach for any of your ancestral songs that they used when they faced these kind of situations. So if you have ancestors who were facing the Union riots and upheavals in the early 20th century, find out what kind of songs did they sing, what did they listen to. You're going to need rhythm to get you through this. And I encourage you to write your own songs, but definitely have ancestral songs. I have one playing right now. You probably can't hear it. It's called Give the People What They Want by the OJs. I invite everybody to go to YouTube and enjoy 1975 with me when people still made protest songs that were played on the radio. Imagine that. Or even imagine where the radio is. So give the people what they want. Keep your head to the sky, earth, wind, and fire. Find your inspiration. John Lennon, whoever it is, you need to reach for it. Aretha Franklin, RESPECT. You got to find a spot so you can dance through this and you don't stumble and fall. Very important. Remember, you're going to dance through this because we were made for this moment. This moment is not greater than us. There is no tank, dirty cop, dirty prosecutor, lawyer, judge. There is no person on this planet greater than the collective will of the people. You know, for years and years, we've sat back and warned people about the divine feminine and what suppressing that energy would look like. And when my son called me yesterday and asked me, was I protesting, he was surprised I answered the phone. He thought I had possibly been arrested here in Houston with the other 200 people who were arrested because he knows who his mother is. And he said, Mom, you're not protesting? And I don't know, what's going on? I knew there was some, some uprisings. And he went on to tell me how George Floyd, may he rest in peace, called on his mother twice when he was being killed live on camera. And I said, oh, did he call on Jesus? And he said, no. Did he call on God, Muhammad, anybody else? No. I said, his mother's dead, right? I need that somewhere. And the answer was yes. And I knew then things were going to be set off in the divine fashion. So when we call on our ancestors in time of pain and trouble, the spirit world answers. And right now we're going through a cultural colonic. So for those of you who have organized your colonics, you may say, oh, you make an appointment for that and you schedule it. Well, right now we're having a giant cultural colon cleansing. And I want you to know you're going to get through it. You're going to survive it. You're going to thrive. And you ought to think, no matter what your plans are, how to come through this, thriving. You're not going to come through raggedy and falling down and barely getting through. Try not to rely on only your own strength. Tap into your ancestral traditions. Tap into the divine mind, the Most High, Yah, Jehovah, whoever you believe in, Saint Bridget, Eshu, whoever you call on. You need to call on them and let them hold your hand so that you don't deplete your own strength. And I'm going to wrap it up by saying this. I already told y'all there's some songs you want rhythm to dance through this. Conserve your energy. Don't let nobody wear you out. You're not going to solve this by yourself, and we're not going to solve it on this Zoom meeting. We're going to put some information out there in the hands of the people. So don't think if you don't, fix all the world problems by 8:30 tonight Pacific Standard Time, you somehow failed. You haven't. Life is an ongoing process. Revolution is an ongoing process. Change is difficult for many people, and we are cultural doulas and midwives right now. So we got to help gently birth some of these dinosaurs into the next step of their evolution. So just remember that. It's going to be all right. And the other thing is, I'd like you to consider to trade your anxiety for awareness. Awareness is gentle and loving and kind. It feels good. You can be aware without being anxious. Do not run yourself into the ground. It took hundreds of years for us to get to this point in this country. You're not going to solve it. I'm not going to solve it by myself, and we're not going to solve it tonight. However, we can lay the bricks for a new foundation on top of what our ancestors have laid so that we can build a better future for ourselves and our communities. I love you guys. I know we can do this. And in closing, thank you for having me. I embrace all of you in love and light. I'm giving it back to you, Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary.
I can't hear you, Nicole. Are you talking?
I am, but I think
I've lost my audio.
Yeah, I think things are a little.
Nicole.
Everything's slow. Can everybody else hear me? Okay, great. So Greta, I'm gonna hand this over to my friend Greta, who Grizz is a wonderful action medic, and I'm gonna be chiming in, but she actually taught me. And I was, some of my first actions that I ever were out on the streets with were with her back in the mid to late 90s. And so I'm gonna let her lead this. And Greta, if you're ready to go, I'm gonna let you kind of take this over.
Okay, well, let's dive in. I've been doing this work for about 30 years now, and just want to thank you, Mary, for that wonderful, wonderful introduction. Very powerful words, and really stuck me in my heart pretty good. So I'm feeling just all this energy of this moment, and very potent times. And I think what we're hoping to do today is empower people who are inclined to be herbalists, healers, medics, helpers, just empower you with some tips, tools, techniques to have out there, either on the streets or in your communities. And so we're just kind of riffing off of some old trainings we've been doing for a long time, just first aid for protesters. And a lot of my work has been done in the forest and in the woods. So I have most of my street experience has been running the base clinics, and that's where I personally feel a lot more comfortable. And I think that's a place where we herbalists can be very successful in supporting larger numbers of people. So this is really more about figuring out where you feel personally called to be, whether you're the node for an affinity group and you're the medic person that you're holding down, just like the healthcare aspect of that affinity group, or whether you maybe gain a little bit of knowledge from this conversation to further your training. And we have some national standards that we've worked hard to set out. And so if you do want to carry yourself as a first aid provider for street protests or demonstrations, we advise that you get at least the 8-hour minimum training from one of the many medical collectives that are out there. And if you further are inclined to want to run as a street medic, we broadly sort of like understand that you have had a 22-hour training. So there are collectives still teaching this training, and we've worked hard to develop these protocols. And I think that that's a really good thing to adhere to, so that we know that the people who are putting themselves out there as street medics have actually had this kind of training under their belt. So basically what we're going to talk about today is just some basic first aid. We're not doing a medic training today here on this Zoom class. We're basically going to be just talking about some of the limitations that we have out there on the street and how to get help. Just have a lot to cover in a short period of time. So trying to just clarify the scope of what we want to do today.
Yeah.
So I'll try to stay away from the medical jargon. Please throw up a chat question if you need some clarification, if you're unsure. And I really encourage people to seek out even like a basic Red Cross first aid training, get trained up in how to do resuscitation, get like the basic weekend CPR training under your belt. If you want to go further, try to get a wilderness first responder training. It's a 2-day miniature wilderness first responder course. And really can't say enough about the value of a wilderness first responder course. To have that under your belt is even more empowering to run as an herbalist, because it will give you an understanding of how to assess scenes. It'll give you some practice with getting your hands involved with the muscle memory, with doing scenario training, so that you can be the calm person. So I think the main thing that I want to impart is the importance of spreading calm. And that's something where we as healers really excel at. We have the ability to change the breath of large numbers of people just simply by drawing into some of those earth energies, the deeper ancestral energies that Mary was starting us out with. So that is a really powerful thing, to be able to alter fear, panic, simply by offering a calming space, a safe space, and helping someone to breathe normally. So we're living in a time of great anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety on the planet, and everybody's kind of up here in their chest. So I just keep trying to remind people the importance of getting really good at that yourself, to get your energy down into your lower belly and feel that earth energy coming through your feet, and to stay really grounded. It'll get that anxious energy out of your head, and it'll help your thinking brain be more clear about what you need to, what kind of, how it can impact your decisions. So we do have Good Samaritan laws in different states. These are known as volunteer protection laws. So they're basically enacted to protect healthcare providers and other rescue personnel from being sued as a result of providing help to a victim during an emergency. So you do have some level of legal immunity if you choose to help someone who's injured. And Vermont and Minnesota have unique laws that require a person to stop at a scene of an emergency to provide reasonable assistance to someone in need. And New York also provides immunity to liability for those who assist. So it's important to know that you are legally protected as a Good Samaritan. You're just there to help out your fellow person. We also have a do no harm protocol that we need to follow, and that's really important, that we never work beyond the scope of our own personal knowledge, and step aside if someone with a higher level of training comes to help you treat a patient that you're working with. And as far as plants go, if you don't fully understand a plant's actions and contraindications, we don't advise that you use that plant for first aid. The plants that you are comfortable with only, and I advise people get to know 6 plants really, really well and use those. The plants are best that can resolve a wide variety of complaints. Let's see. I'm gonna jump around here in my 2-day intensive. Do we have Corey Pine and Seven Song on the call yet?
There's a lot of people. I haven't seen
Okay.
I can go look for them. They might be trying to figure out how to get on.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that they feel like they can participate if they feel called to.
I'm looking for them. Let me see if they're around. And if Corey Pine and Seven Song, if you are on here, and y'all aren't able to speak, just let me know and I can give you host status. I just don't see, there's a lot of people, so I can't tell who's on and who isn't. And Kat is here too. And Kat, if you have anything to add to this, that would be great.
Yeah, please feel free to jump in. So, you know, not everybody's role is to be in the streets, and we need to think of this as a marathon and really do our best to help support our own selves to be healthy and strong. And a lot of what we can do is healthcare and education and providing public health in the streets. The biggest step to take is maintaining a safe space, and that can be in the corner of a alleyway or under a tree. And so, you know, we're always doing our scene assessment to look for a quiet and safe space where we can either provide direct care to someone or be a comforting person to talk to. That's kind of the street medic creed there. And I think that herbalists can be super effective with doing offering little pop-up tea stations. And it's really easy to carry a carafe of hot tea and offer some to-go cups and provide some really excellent care that way.
I would actually add in there, I don't know if you said this because I was looking for them, but dehydration is going to be one of the biggest issues that you see at street actions, where people get really caught up with the moment and everyone's running around and forgetting to drink. And so even if you had, I know it's not the most environmentally sustainable, but a lot of bottled water to give out, if that's an action alone that can really help a lot of folks to stay well.
Yeah, we've done a lot of carrying water out to the front lines. So that means someone with a vehicle who has a lot of, you know, bigger jugs to refill from, so you can be a mobile water refilling station. Mostly I carry a pretty large backpack. I carry one of those camelback dromedaries in it just for my own hydration. And that's a nice thing to have because you don't have the bulky water bottle through your backpack onto your back. And then you have a tube coming out of you could just like take sips throughout the day. And that is also really beneficial in a pandemic, right? Keeping your front line of defense moist and juicy all the time by sipping small amounts of water throughout the day. So that's the primary number one thing to do, and to be a good role model in that way of like staying hydrated and helping people remember small sips frequently throughout the day, rather than, you know, going for hours and hours and then drinking big gulps. Our bodies are not built to handle taking on huge amounts of liquid. So another really important thing, hydration. Basically, we always prepare to be arrested. So when we're heading out, we want to think about leaving our wallets and our IDs behind, writing important phone numbers on our arms with a Sharpie marker so that we don't have the risk of having our phone taken. Just, you know, leave those important things behind, but bring with you important emergency information that you might need.
Can I add to that too, is some of this posts that I've been seeing go out are people putting out helpful information, like, if you're not ready to get arrested, then don't plan to. You have to plan to be arrested and have everything in line. If you're going to put yourself into a volatile situation, you got to assume that that's a possibility. And it's not about necessarily planning to lock down. If anyone has been out there, you know that at any moment something can explode around you and you're suddenly in the middle of it. So just go out there knowing that that is a possibility, not planning necessarily to get arrested, but just that it is always.
Yeah, so personal safety, that's always the number one thing in first aid, is to survey the scene. So we're always having as much situational awareness, we're cultivating that. So we're really paying close attention to our surroundings. That's the last thing we want, is another patient. So always make sure that before you go in, that the scene is safe for you. Look around, make sure nothing else is going to fall on you or some projectiles come at you. So wearing proper protective clothing is really important. Make sure you have really good fitting shoes that you can walk in for a long time and be in all day without getting any blisters. And that's something that an affinity group medic can look out for in their affinity group, is just make sure that everybody else has good fitting shoes that are protective and protect the toes. All kinds of things can happen to the feet, so it's important to keep them protected. Likewise, dress in layers. Try to not wear materials that are super porous that could potentially hold in chemical weapons. So a lot of people wear wind jackets or rain jackets that can more easily be washed after exposure to chemical weapons. Extra scarves and bandanas.
Yeah, we had a question about what is an affinity group.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, an affinity group is basically an organized pod. So that's kind of what we're self-organizing into in this pandemic anyway. So it's a group of people that you are quarantining with, essentially, that you can be close to. They have each other's backs. They know each other's emergency information. They're ideally, in this time of the pandemic, coming from the same household perhaps, or, you know, people who have been associating with each other closely already, and have each other's backs, and, you know, just run as a group of people watching out for each other. What, maybe one person has more water than the others, and maybe one person has more snacks than the others, and they share it and they keep track of each other and they watch out for each other. And if there's arrests, then they take action with the legal teams to help bail people out, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somebody wanted to know if we're going to talk about how to help folks with wounds. We are going to get into some basics, but this in an hour and a half to teach things properly. What we were hoping to do here is to start a conversation and start touching on certain things. And if there's an interest for us to focus on certain things, then we can come back and focus on certain things. But there's a lot to cover here, from chemical weapons to wounds to how to go out onto the street. So we kind of have to decide where we want to go with this as a group. So what we can do is see how far we get today and what we get to. And if there's enough of the interest in going further with this, then we can choose to have like a more focused session on one thing. At least that's what I was thinking. Greta, what about you?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. We could definitely do a brief overview of herbal remedies that you would want to carry in your first aid kit. We can definitely talk about that today. That would be,
and wounds. Somebody was saying also what to do with a wound in general.
Yeah.
So as far as one of the things, and you know, you see that we're setting this up before we get into do this, do that, because part of this is about going out in the proper mindset with the proper equipment so that you don't become an issue. And so one of the things that will happen is people want to go out on their own, and I'm going to caution against going out on your own on the streets. I think there should always be a buddy. Always, 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 always. You should be going with somebody, because if something happens to you, no one's going to be able to know where you went or how to get to you. So, so just consider that before you go out and you act as a street medic.
Yeah, especially in the large cities, as we have seen, you can quickly become in what's technically termed in emergency medical system as a wilderness care, where you're more than 20 minutes away from definitive care. So even in the heart of the city, if the streets are blocked off, if the transit is not running, and there's no way to get a patient who needs more definitive care, say at the hospital, the ambulances can't get through, you're basically in a wilderness situation. So that's a really good place to have a buddy, someone that can help you make decisions. And maybe while you're treating your patient, they can be watching out or ferrying supplies or helping get help from someone more trained than you. And we have a golden period, it's called, in wilderness first aid, where we have a 60-minute time from the injury to definitive care where survival potential is best. So we're always kind of having that in the back of our mind, that we have an hour where the outcome is positive before things can go south. So we're trying to work fast, and we're trying to assess the situation and see if we need to get someone into the hospital.
Right. And as we know, in big cities, you know, during a protest, for sure, people can get stuck. So it may be that you don't have the medical training or licensure to deal with something, but you still could be stuck supporting somebody who can't get to medical attention. So then there's the question, what do you do then, right?
Hence the large backpack full of adequate water, lots of snacks, headlamp, extra wipes, all the things you might need for a long day out on the trail.
Right.
I'm always over prepared, and I'm usually glad for it.
Right. So we had a question about wounds. I know you had a specific kind of method. Did you want to go in one direction first, or did you want?
Yeah, I want to cover the steps in helping people, because I think it's really important to just stay focused on that for a minute, because prevention is always the best cure. And then we can get into the more technical details, and definitely, like, yeah, that's the juicy stuff, the wound care. You know, Nikki and I have a lot of experience in treating horse kicks and police baton wax and rubber bullet injuries. So, and the chemical weapons, of course. So we'll get there. But I just want to make sure that we really get clear on how the steps in helping someone in a chaotic environment. So as we know, when we sprain our own ankle, the first thing we do is we touch, and we get that hand connection to our own body. So helping someone be present, even a hand on the shoulder and a little bit of communication. Hi, my name is so-and-so. I have this level of training. Do I have your permission to treat? And also just the energetic flow that we healers and herbalists plug into on a regular basis. So an injury is a disturbance to the energetic flow. And if the only thing that we're able to do in that moment is encourage proper, deeper breathing and thus help restore their energetic flow, then the nerve impulses will immediately calm, and we will have impacted more than just that person that we're helping. We will have impacted the people around them, simply because they are going to be operating at a more grounded nervous system state, and just from a place of more calm. So I think overall, that's like kind of one of my main things I want to offer for this moment, is just thinking about all those tips and techniques and tools we have to improve the level of calm and help avoid these freak out moments. So just even breathing, and like the audible sound of breathing, you can practice this the next time you're in a large crowd and people are walking by. You can just sort of breathe out and see how many people you can stimulate to take a deep breath, and then just observe like how much that calms people's shoulders will drop down. They'll be walking a little bit more in their bodies and in their own presence, and that will give people more clarity of mind, more presence of mind. They'll be more just they'll be more focused.
Unless you do it without a mask right now. Because if you breathe on people now and they definitely don't get more relaxed, right?
Yeah, yeah. But we see this with, knife wounds where there's copious amounts of blood flowing. I do a lot of work at Primitive Skills Gathering, so I get to practice with this a lot, where just watching the energetic body being brought more into balance just with simply some of those energetic techniques, diminishing the pain and holding space for that person, and suddenly the blood flow will diminish, which is ultimately what we want. So we're just, sinking into the center, not into fear. And I really think that breathing with the patient is probably the most important thing we can do to encourage awareness, and just really feeling that air down deep in the bottom of the lungs. A lot of people tend to just breathe up here, and it's like, it's another piece of the whole pandemic where there's the fear and just, the heavy mucus in the lungs. And like, the more that we can experience that feeling of really expanding the alveoli in the bottom of our lungs, I think that awareness will be helpful also.
I just shared from the Black Cross Collective, a file that you can actually print right there, and it's a complete guide to what to bring, what to wear, what to be expecting. So that's all up there for you to just download.
Yeah, those are nice to print out and hand them out to folks on the streets. So I'll talk a little bit about pain. Does that sound good? The next thing to dive into, since that's sort of like one of the overarching issues that street medics encounter.
Yes.
So, we have a lot of good pain relieving herbs that often contain salicylates. That's the compound from which aspirin was derived. And, we're using herbs to quell inflammation. So Willow Bark is a really nice first aid remedy to have with you, like possibly in a tincture form. If you are doing a pop-up tea clinic, I can put out a recipe I've developed that I got from Glenn Nagel that is really nice willow bark tea that's really helpful for headaches and stress. And, part of this whole picture of going out into the streets every day is having a place to come back to quell the pain and calm the mind. And so I think that's where herbalists can really, really excel. I want to encourage you to go out into the streets and be present at the protests, but I also want to encourage everyone to do what they can to set up pop-up aftercare clinics. I think that coming out from the streets all day and having some warm teas provided and a self-help table where people can pick and choose things they might need that are donated, really, really nice to do. Electrolyte.
One thing to add to what you're saying, that you're bringing up herbs, and for those of you that are on this that are not herbalists and not familiar with it, part of our goal as street medics and herbalists is that we want to be part of a revolution in healthcare where, you don't immediately run to the store to get your aspirin to cure something. We're looking at a larger focus of holistic health for all, and not just whatever is being fed to us in a broken medical system right now. So that's one reason to consider that herbalism is part of that.
For sure. And on the hydration note, another little piece, just the importance of electrolytes. And if people are shouting and screaming all day and there's gases in the air that are really drying, I can't stress enough the importance of electrolytes. That could be as simple as a pinch of salt and a pinch of sugar in some water. If people are not adequately hydrated and they're bonking a little bit, getting some electrolyte solution into them can be a really quick way to revive someone.
A question about the first tea that you said somebody wanted to know. I guess it was willow. Was that what you're
Willow bark tea? Yeah. Yeah. So I could just like verbally give that recipe really quick.
Yeah.
So willow bark can pretty much be from any willows you might want to find. Obviously, make sure that you're not harvesting from an old railroad bed or a place where automobiles were taken apart and there's toxic soils. So being aware of your source is really important. The bark is what's used, scraped off the stems. So ideally you obtain your willow bark from a nice pure creek side somewhere. I usually dry the willow bark slightly for a few hours even, and then I soak it overnight with apple cider vinegar, and this leaches some of the tannins out so that it doesn't taste quite so bitter. And then the next day I basically decoct it for like 8 hours in a big soup pot. And you can, towards the end, you can add flavoring agents like star anise or fennel, or the flavor of it is kind of like a roasty, like a dandelion, roasted dandelion root, if you've ever had that tea. And so we're kind of like wanting some of those like orange or anise flavors. So you could add orange peels to it with the star anise. And then I add some baking soda to the solution, and that also helps cut the tannins and makes it more palatable. So to like say a big bean pot full of the willow bark tea, I'll add a cup or two of baking soda, and then I pour it into a big glass dispenser and I put it on my self-help table, and I'll label it as such, willow bark tea, you know, for pain and headaches. And it really takes a lot of heat off of the clinic, because so many people come in with a headache or pain. They've been out all day if it's dusty, and just a self-help cup of the willow bark tea and they're good to go. So I found that to be a really inexpensive and easy to make remedy. You do need to have a good stove that you can, you know, cook the tea all day on, because it does need a lengthy decoction.
And I just put up, some folks were asking about harvesting, and unless you are a trained herbalist and have permission to do that sort of stuff and understand what you're doing, I really suggest right now supporting local herb shops. There is an herb shop in almost every part of the country that is struggling right now and would greatly appreciate your support and provide you with custom blends and put things together for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Very important. So let's see, we were like 45 minutes in and we're going for about an hour and a half, you said?
Yeah, about an hour and a half.
Okay. See,
I think I want to make sure we touch on chemical weapons for a while, for sure, because I know that's a big one right now.
Do you want to do that, and then I can do burns and lacerations and wound care after that?
Yeah. Hold on, one person. I've been reading online and confused about correct. Okay. Yeah. So, and honestly, I'm going to come from a place of I have not had chemical weapons experience for quite some time. So it's been a while. But I can tell you about what I know of them. And there's been there's been a lot of folks that are trying new things out. And I've heard there's new sorts of protocols. But I'm going to just touch on a little bit about what I know about chemical weapons. I spent the bulk of my experience with it in the late 90s, early 2000s. So that's been a while, right? I've supported people through pepper spray and tear gas after that, but when I was running into it was quite some time ago. So first of all, the protocols that I've seen, I question a lot, because we tried quite a few things, and we even had volunteers through the Black Cross that volunteered to get pepper sprayed in order to do pepper spray trials. So I think that it's important to note that that don't go off what you hear on social media. You need to really make sure that the person has some experience with trying the protocols and be really careful about them. I trust the resources from the Black Cross because I know they're solid, and we're updating them right now. It's with people with experience. And honestly, from a pepper spray perspective, which I've had a lot of experience with a long time ago, it hurts really bad. It's really, really scary. It's bad if you have contacts in. So that's the first thing you want to know. Does the person have an allergy or have contacts in? Those are the most important things. And then get them out of the crowd and ask them for consent. If the person's been sprayed, you say, can I touch you? I'm here to help. I noticed you got sprayed. You want to talk to them calmly again, get them out of the crowd. That is so important. It's really scary when you get hit because you can't see, you're hurting. You want to have somebody guide you away from the bulk of the crowd over to the edge, sit the person down, talk to them. And this is that calm that Greta's been talking about. You going in, one of the things that I noticed when I was visiting a action about a year ago, helping out in the clinic, is the medics were not really getting taken care of, or they weren't really, treated very nicely by the whole action group. And when I was a medic, medics were put to bed first. They were fed, they were everything, because we were going out on the streets for a very long time to make sure everybody was okay. And we needed to be in really good spirits. We had to get enough sleep because we might be out far longer than a lot of people that were out there. So it was, I could hear them all complaining and at the action I was at about a year ago. And I said, this is where you need to talk to the larger group and make sure that medics are in a good space, because you need to be able to impart that calm when somebody has a chemical weapon or a rubber bullet wound. First thing, you breathe, and then you go over there and help them to breathe and take them out of that, because that's why they use chemical weapons, is to disperse crowds quickly. And so to have that calm is really important, because it's not, those chemical weapons are not there, and all of those projectiles are not there to make you feel like you're in a good place. They're there to disperse you and scare you. So what you can do as a medic, first of all, is to be calm and bring somebody out and tell them, you're going to get through this. Just like Mary was saying, this is scary. I'm going to sit here with you. I'm going to talk you through this. It's going to be okay. And then, yes, you would treat them. Now, all in all, you could have a lot of different things that you could use for pepper spray, for example. But I stick to very simple things. If I just have water on me, if you don't have your milk and magnesia and all these other things that have been said to work, plain out water in doing a water flush in the eyes is good. It's a good thing, as long as you aren't touching the eye and all these things. You can't learn this on Zoom. I'm not going to show you this right now, but I want you to think about, this is where the training would be that you'd want to get. Now, I've heard there's a woman by the name of Stevie, or somebody, I'm sorry, not sure of their identification, but Stevie has a video on eye flushing, you said?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. I'll post the link up here on the chat.
Perfect.
I also just taught this a couple hours ago, so awesome. I'm comfortable doing
talk about it.
Physical tutorial in proper eye flush technique. So basically so if someone has been pepper sprayed in the eyes, they can't see, they're stressed out. So you want to put my hand on their back or shoulder, and I tell them to stick their butt out and stick their chin out. And this is really important, because when you're doing an eye flush, you want the chemical weapons to fall down into the gutter or sidewalk or wherever you are. So getting them in the proper position is really important. Sometimes I'll look at a tree so someone can hang on to a tree or a stop sign or a park bench. And that helps them just hold on, because they can't see, right? And they're really stressing out. And so you got to keep talking them through it. And you have your water in a bottle with a squirt top. The larger squirt tops are better than, say, a smaller stream. We want to have it be a firm and fast eye flush, but we don't want it to be a tiny stream. So we're going to ask them to point their nose and their chin to the sky. And that's another really important thing, is to get their face pointing high enough up that the water with the chemical weapons in it will flow down off the nose and onto the ground and not run down the other side of their face and down their neck and under their collar and under their shirt where they'll get wet for the rest of the day, right? So that's really important, just to get the patient in the proper position, get their chin up, and then you're basically just giving them a nice strong flush of water and following the natural route of the eye to exude particles, and then you can do the other side.
Yeah.
And usually they want to get back out in there.
Yeah, and somebody asked about what to do if they have contacts. Usually you need to know that, but they need, first of all, don't wear contacts to any of these protests if possible. That should be the first thing said. But usually a lot of times they'll flush out with a lot of water, so you need to, but they need to get them out. And so sometimes that you can wash their hands too, and they can start doing a little, but you've got to make sure their hands are clean. Greta, do you have more to say about contacts? Because I can't remember much about.
Yeah, it's really important that they take it out themselves, and that's where you can assist if you have an extra yogurt container or something in your pack or some way to help them keep track of them. But yeah, we usually have like I'll have a compass in my pack, and that often has a little mirror on it, and that can be really helpful for them to hopefully see their contacts. But number one, if you're going to go to a protest where you think there might be police presence, don't wear contacts, wear goggles. Or find another role so that you're not, that's just a big problem. Contacts.
You're already wearing masks. Now, why not goggles too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's good against the virus too, potentially.
Yeah, I don't like seeing pregnant women out on the front lines, just like, find a role where you don't need to put yourself at risk. There's a lot of roles in the protest movement, a lot of ways to be of help. So that's just another thing that we can do as Affinity Group medics, or just protesters that have interest in providing first aid to people, is to have this kind of scene safety, ongoing situational awareness. We're looking out through the crowd, looking for people that might have a problem or difficulty that maybe we could help them navigate, help them connect with a medic, or help them find their affinity group that could then help them, or evacuate them if needed, things like that.
And, to add to with the chemical weapons, and I think that one of the things that not to be shocked about is, don't be shocked if you see things happen that you didn't think somebody would do to somebody that had that power to do it. Because what I mean by that is, I am surprised that people are surprised when somebody gets rubber bulleted in the face, or a child gets rubber bulleted, or somebody has tear gas, shot directly at them, and whatever. I've seen the gamut done to people, and on American soil. And so it's, you may see things, and you need to think about, as a medic, are you prepared to deal with seeing that and being able to run into it if it happens? Because not everybody is built for that, and you don't have to. You may want to help other ways. So the chemical weapons people, that's a specific type of person that feels okay with running in when somebody gets really injured. This is why we're trying to encourage you to get other first aid skills besides, these Zoom meetings, like wilderness first aid and things like that, because whether it's a rubber bullet or tear gas or whatever is being, now I saw them shooting pepper bullets, and that's new to me. So I don't know what else is out there now. So I think it's important to really think about what role you want to play, and have the equipment and the training to be able to fulfill that role better. Whether you want to offer herbs, or you want to help people with wounds, whatever it is. And I know this is last minute because there's some things unfolding in the US, but I have a strong suspicion that this might not be something that just fizzles out all of a sudden. So just wanted to put that out there before, Greta, if you had more to say.
Yeah, and you know, I live on the north coast of California where we're at serious risk of an earthquake, a large earthquake at any minute. So that's kind of like my daily preoccupation is like, am I ready? You know, we just need one big, huge natural disaster to top on this pile of shit that's accumulating, and we'll be even deeper in it. So yeah, I wanted to just say that having a food safe handler certification can be super powerful. Simply being the person that takes it upon themselves to go check in with the place that's making food for the people and make sure that their dishwashing scene is safe, that alone can be super, super powerful for the whole health of the whole community and keep dozens and dozens of people active and engaged in whatever the effort is going on. So that's something I try to promote a lot, because that should be our role too, is looking out for that level of public health and safety in the kitchen, making sure that the chefs are well taken care of and have their stress and adaptogenic formulas and closed-toed shoes and things like that.
Perfect. Yeah. And tear gas, you know, as far as that as a weapon, I found that those are it's from my memories of it covering up, I could usually get away from it. The most important thing is to find out if somebody has asthma that gets exposed to it or other breathing issues, because tear gas basically makes you feel like everything's kind of crushing in your chest. And that's definitely, again, get the person away from the group. If anyone's been exposed or hurt, they need to get out of a certain area. And somebody just asked a question about forming affinity groups and functioning. I'm going to share my screen real quick because I wanted to show you what I had come up with a long time ago. But can you see that on the screen, y'all?
Oh yeah, so, I was looking at this in the hard copy form.
Yeah. So this is one I did a long time ago. So medical team structures on the streets during marches. So I'm not there to tell you, I'm not an expert anyway. This is just what we learned over the years of working on the streets, trying to protect people and help them to get to safety if something happened. So we would have like scouts, we'd have a medic. This is like a larger affinity group structure, but you'll see that the scouts and medics are part of it. And you have people that are guiding you, people who are looking on all sides. Like a little pod is going to always have their eyes on all sides to see what's happening around you and what's coming at you. Another thing to note is that you want to be able to disappear quickly into the crowd, because if you are a medic, I'll tell you right now, medics are some of the first people to get taken out and arrested, because they take the calm away from the crowd. If you know there's a bunch of medics there, you're going to feel like people have their eyes on you. If they're taken out, that was one of the first things I learned when I got my first medic training from someone that Grizz that you brought in. That was what they learned in the war, was in Vietnam War, the medics were the first ones to be taken out. So being able to disappear as a medic and have an armband that you can take on and off is also a really smart kind of method for being able to not be kind of focused on at an action. So so this is a document I can obviously share with folks, and it's just about safety and also what to do if you're arrested, things like that, because a lot of times medics, again, they're the ones who get singled out. So keep that in mind if you decide to play that role. And I'll take this off the screen.
So basically what they are, tear gas is used to disperse crowds and subdue individuals. It's often mixed with solvents, delivered through the use of propellants. So some of these propellants can cause cancer, birth defects, genetic mutations. I still have clients that I work with to this day who were heavily dosed by the tear gas we experienced at the WTO, the Seattle shutdown. So methylene chloride is something we thought was probably being used there. And that was causing mental confusion, headaches, tingling of the limbs, rapid heartbeats, visual and auditory hallucinations. We saw a lot of menstrual cycle disruptions. We saw one spontaneous abortion, varying effects on the lungs and the digestive system, of course. So, you know, fairly toxic stuff. I'm not totally up on what's being used now. I know that at Standing Rock, they did see the pepper spray bullets. That's the first time I think we saw those. Anyway, these tear gas canisters are fired into the crowds, sometimes directly at people. So that's another injury that we medics watch out for. And like, you know, just the power of the medic's voice saying, you know, be calm or run away, or helping direct people. There's a canister coming, can be really powerful. The canisters are super hot. So if people pick them up and they don't have adequate gloves, they can get burned on the hands. So another thing to watch out for. And the time that it takes someone to throw it back, they can be heavily exposed.
We're bogging down.
Oh, is the audio bogging down? Uh-oh. Oh no. They're trying to cut us off. Frozen.
Miss Greta, you're muted, but we can still hear you.
Thank you. All right, my screen froze up, so I don't know if that was my end or not. Continuing on the actual canisters, let's see, I think that's mostly what I wanted to just say, that, you know, both are skin irritants and cause burning pain and a lot of excess drainage from the eyes, nose, mouth, and especially impact the breathing sessions, the breathing passages. So pepper spray is used because it causes immediate pain, and it's a lot harder to remove from the skin, and has the capacity. I've definitely seen first-degree burns caused by pepper spray, especially with thinner skinned individuals. Younger people tend to get first-degree burns. So you know, just a lot of disorientation, confusion, sometimes panic, and then the coughing and the difficulty breathing. So just wanting, you know, you to be aware of how the symptoms will present themselves. I'm really intrigued by what's happening in Hong Kong. They are actually capturing the tear gas canisters and putting them out in a what looks like propane bottles with the top cut off, full with water and baking soda, and then a lid, but taking the lid off and putting it back on to allow the steam to escape. So this is a tactic that's being done with firemen's gloves and people wearing motorcycle helmets for protection. And also they're using leaf blowers to blow the tear gas away from protesters. Something else to be prepared for is intense anger. It's really common when people are pepper sprayed. It makes some people quite pissed off, like an angry bear. So I just try to focus the energy towards recovery and help people return to the action. Tear gas effects usually disappear after about 5 minutes to half an hour, whereas the worst pepper spray can take 45 minutes to 2 hours to subside. So the sooner that you can treat, the better. The symptoms will diminish faster. Pepper spray penetrates the nerve endings. That's why the pain can last for way longer than the tear gas. So either way, no matter how you cut it, both are very uncomfortable, and ideally we try to prevent this in intense actions, but police behavior can be very unpredictable and avoidance is not always possible. So we're looking out for folks with respiratory diseases such as asthma or emphysema, that could risk exacerbation of those pre-existing disorders and permanent damage if they're exposed. Any vulnerable humans like infants or kids up to 6 years old, the elderly, the immune compromised, definitely the risk is intensified and has possibly life-threatening responses. So any people with chronic health conditions or medications that might weaken the immune system are going to have possibly a delayed recovery. So this is where herbs can really shine in the aftercare from exposure to chemical weapons. And we can do another webinar that can talk just about aftercare and all of the remedies that we've discovered over the years that can be the most helpful.
Yeah,
I think it's really important to remind people not to wear oil-based skin products to a protest, because these chemical weapons will stick to that oil and the oil will act as an accelerant on the skin. So that includes any sunscreens that might have oil in them, any lotions that might have been used previously.
Perfect. That was what I was going to ask. Somebody was asking about Vaseline, and as far as I remember, we don't want to create any kind of place for oil to attach to, like Vaseline.
Yeah. A lot of people put vinegar-soaked bandana around their neck and claim that that helps cut the tear gas. I'm skeptical about that one, but that's been used a lot.
That's funny because Olivia just put that one up there. I remember trying that, and I don't remember that helping too much. I just remember it smelled really strong. But you know, here's the big thing too with chemical weapons. I have a very visceral memory of several of them, and you get this kind of adrenaline pumping usually, where a lot of that stuff doesn't, like, you get used to them. That's this creepy part of it, and then I still can remember the smell and what it feels like, and it's very much in my body still. And you get to this point where when you smell it coming or you feel it coming, you kind of start to move past it when you get used to it after a while, which sounds weird, but as a medic, you just kind of learn to ride it and run quick. Have good running shoes. Gas masks, that's another thing that has been helpful, and that's actually really good for this time of our human existence. And I think like you know what else we didn't talk about is the decontamination protocols after you do get exposed or somebody does get exposed. You want to make sure and not touch anywhere on your body, and you want to go decontaminate as soon as possible. Get your clothes into a a plastic bag, get them washed. You don't want to wash them with other clothes. You want to get in the shower, you do cold water, you want to get stuff off of you, soap and water, as quickly as possible, and get yourself decontaminated, or get the person decontaminated as quickly as possible.
And don't put those clothes in the dryer. And if they still smell like chemical weapons, maybe try washing them again. And if they still smell, then you need to throw them away. So that's another good reason to not wear, you know, your favorite hand-me-down jean jacket or something to a protest. Just wear clothes that you don't care about, that you'd be willing to sacrifice and are not emotionally attached to. And that also are as least porous as possible. So dress in layers, you know, be comfortable. You might be out there all day, but, you know, prepare for, plan for a good time, but prepare for the worst.
Yeah, and somebody asked about somebody who'd been exposed to tear gas that had asthma, that should we be immediately concerned with getting them to urgent care or emergency room? Will a normal inhaler be enough? So here's the thing. It's going to depend on the person and what type of asthma and how they respond to the tear gas. I would say that if you are at all in doubt, yes, get them to urgent care ASAP, because you don't want to have a medical situation get worse, right? And so it's the do no harm protocol and making sure to act within your scope. If you don't know, you probably need to err on the side of caution and take them in to the closest place or call 911. problem is in a large scenario, like thousands of people on the streets running in all directions, can EMS get there? Can somebody get there? So that's the downside to that. So.
Yeah, Kathleen just posted at Standing Rock, they partnered asthmatics with someone who knew how to use an inhaler and stay with that person if they were in frontline work. So like, that's a really good note.
Yeah. Yeah, and having an extra inhaler for emergencies in case somebody loses theirs, and that could be an easy fix for them to, and they'll know. People who have asthma that have that sort of thing know exactly like where they're at, because they're very conscious and aware.
Open that line of communication and really try to get clear with them. And that's where ideally, if they have come in an affinity group, there's going to be people in their group who know how risky it is for them to have had this exposure and whether it's likely that they're going to need to go to the emergency department or not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let me think. Rubber bullets, they hurt. They get launched everywhere. Some of them are big. I've seen ones that were probably this big around get launched at people's guts. And who knows what else gets pulled out on the street. I know at Standing Rock they did water cannons, so you just never know what's going to be pulled out that's supposedly non-lethal and get used in a way that could become potentially lethal. So I think that just being prepared with more skills, and this maybe inspires people to get more training after this too, and to know where their role is. Is it treating chemical weapons, or is it making sure and supporting people afterwards when they have PTSD and they're struggling to get by because they're having flashbacks of getting, tear gassed and pepper sprayed. So there's a lot of places for us.
Indeed.
Did you have anything else, Greta? Anything on chemical weapons?
Not specifically on chemical weapons, maybe just to reiterate the cold shower. And that's something that medics can provide. There's, you can make your own little shower with a laundry bottle and poke holes in the lid and squeeze the water out, or, carry a couple of the backpackers solar showers that you can easily fill up at a spigot. Oftentimes when a downtown area is taken over with the protest, there'll be sympathetic shop owners that'll allow you to access water in the back of their shop, and that can help you to set up a little mini decontamination station in their front door where you can get people washed off. But yeah, that's the main thing, is to get that person to flowing cold water as soon as possible. They're going to want that. For lacerations and bleeding, I always carry a small vial of Cayenne Powder. That's my go-to for stopping bleeding. Just a little bit of the Cayenne Powder sprinkled on a good bleeding wound can really help from further mess of blood everywhere. And another good thing to carry in your kit might be some Yunnan Baiyao. It's a internal and external for bleeding. It's a Chinese patent formula or remedy. It's a single herb. So this herb will slow the bleeding and help someone stay alive until the ambulance comes. Yeah, and there's a quick question here. And they asked if you could type the name of it in the chat, please. And then somebody wanted to know what do you do if somebody needs to go to the hospital or urgent care? So you, of course, dial 911 always if you even suspect that, because usually these actions are happening in a city and there's a reason that we have emergency medical responders, right? But in the case that it doesn't happen, one of the things I found is that you can take a space and create a safer space for somebody if they get hurt. So let's say somebody gets knocked over or knocked out by a concussion grenade or something like that. That was one they used to use on us, where you would just, some loud boom and you just, pass out and you don't know what happened. So if somebody's knocked out or you're worried for them, you can take over an area and you can create a little clinic space
to keep the person safe until medical personnel can get there. Some of the ways we've done this is with bus stops, taking over a bus stop or commandeering an area that's maybe off to the side and having a group of people stand around the person who's injured so that nobody gets from the crowd, ends up falling on them or other potential issues. So think creatively. I think Grizz had a story about something that just happened at the Sheridan.
Oh, I think that Street Medic they were able to occupy a Sheridan in Minneapolis. What about, to house people. So they've got 200 people, 200 houseless individuals, mostly Black and Indigenous, holed up in a Sheridan, and presumably they've figured out a food train.
Mm-hmm. So, and it is true, somebody said, make sure you give information about the context of the injury to a 911 call. One of the most important supplies to carry in this case is a Sharpie. And you can write down the time of the incident on the person. And that's going to be very important for medics to know, like, when did they get shot? When did this chemical weapon hit them? When did they fall? So write down the time and check that and write that on them, if with permission, of course. And if they're knocked out, just make sure that's on there, because that's going to be one of the first things a medical person asks is, when did this.
And the legal team as well, and medics can play a really amazing role in supporting the legal team with documenting of the injuries, which have brought people some money in return for legal lawsuits that have been placed in New York City during the RNC, and definitely in Seattle. Some of the people were able to receive financial paybacks from their injuries, which were deemed an excessive use of force.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So where do we want to go? We have like 15 more minutes. I know, there's like so much.
Yeah, so a lot more.
Does anyone have a direction they'd like us to go for 15 more minutes with this? Lacerations, somebody says.
Yeah. This is Mary, and I have a question I guess I could come up on. I'm staying off video because of the bandwidth stuff,
yeah.
But I'm wondering, is it possible for us to schedule a follow-up to this? I had posted maybe quarterly. I don't know how the hosts feel. If you all want to discuss this after this is over, that's cool. But my perception is that we know we need these skills in our communities, and we don't have to wait until something happens. The next shoe has fallen, so we're clear there's going to be something, hurricane, earthquake, whatever it is, uprisings, and this is valuable information. So I'm not proposing that a quarterly event like for 5 years, but maybe we could talk about a strategic way to offer this information. And quarterly may be too far out, because while we're all doing the quarantine game, we all have some access to just being still. So I am proposing, in short, a follow-up to this, so we're not kind of throwing it up in the air and then letting the chips fall as they may.
Good call, Mary. So I mean, from my perspective, and Grizz, you can tell me what you think, I would like to talk about it afterwards with Mary and whomever else, because we have other medics who have skills and they might want to take on certain things, and maybe we can figure out what would work for folks. And then what do you think, Grizz?
I mean, yeah, just providing a resource. Like, I see someone's asking, where would we recommend they go for future, to get a training right now. That's definitely something that we're trying to figure out how we can provide that in this video format. I mean, I'm down to do this weekly right now. I'm not really doing much of anything else except training people. I'm just trying to get all this knowledge out of my head and back, there's so much. I want to empower the youth and get this information out there. We've had this digital divide where we have a lot of lost history because of that digital divide. Stuff has not been recorded. We used to do all of our work and organizing through zines, and then there was a period of time where like the green scare happened and no one was really doing much of anything. And then now with this new digital world where everything is online, people are still craving the actual tangible, you know, like holding the zine in your hands and being able to read it, or just being able to hand it out on the streets can be really powerful. So yeah, we're definitely trying to work on updating some like Affinity Group medics field guides, and I would love to meet again in this format, and we could have more of a Q&A session. And this first one is just kind of figuring it out and seeing where people, you know, interesting to read everybody's comments in the chat and just kind of see what people's needs are.
Yeah, and there's a lot of questions coming through. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get to all of them, but I think one of the biggest ones is people want to know where to go for more training. And I like that people are putting up, I think it's nice for people to put in the chat if they do know of something. That would be really helpful for folks that are newer to this. We're, you know, somebody asked about refusal of medical services. I have never heard of that happening. I mean, I'm sure it has. I have never seen it happen personally on the streets. I've seen that people couldn't get to people. Some of these other questions, it says it's happening to Black Lives Matter. I mean, it could be. I just don't know of that, or how to navigate that right now. But if people have ideas, yeah, I've never heard of that happening, so I can't speak on it. So what else should we do?
Can I just do a quick wrap on traumatic, like herbal remedies that we can help with for traumatic impact injuries?
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge thing with the beanbag rounds and the police horse kicks, baton wax, things like that. And that's kind of like what I cut my teeth on as a herbal first aid medic. So one of the first things that we want to think about is either ice or heat. And oftentimes in the field, we don't have ice with us. It might be easy to get ice if there's a corner store that's open, and obtain ice to keep the swelling down, but also just want to put a plug out there for the power and value of heat. And I like to carry a moxibustion stick. It's a mugwort stick that acupuncturists use, and it's a really easy kitchen remedy. They cost like 99 cents each, and that's a really nice way to help resolve aftercare with, like, say, a horse kick to the thigh where you have a massive, deep amount of feral blood in the tissues. And the just simple act of hot and cold contrast. The hydrotherapy is a very powerful method to heal some of those deeper bruises and wounds. So that could just be as simple as a hot water bottle contrasted with an ice pack, back and forth. Usually you want to do the hot for 3 minutes and the cold for 90 seconds. That can be really, really helpful for healing rubber bullet wounds, especially. I use arnica homeopathic. It's really easy to carry on the street. The sugar pills are easily dispensed, pretty safe for everyone. Lightweight, fits in my pocket. So I'm kind of always trying to go for things like that. And also, like, pretty much things I carry with me, I always want them to have at least 1 or 2 other uses. So I try to find the things that don't have a lot of contraindications and that can be used for a couple different reasons, a couple different applications, sorry. So yeah, that's just the piece I wanted to say about that. I personally developed a trauma oil after Seattle that was really specific to help with the rubber bullet wounds that we were seeing. And I put some poplar bud oil in there and some hypericum oil and arnica and calendula. And so you can create your own blend and put maybe some essential oils in there. That could be a really nice topical salve or a cream that you could hand out to people, and they could continue to apply in an aftercare situation. So Karen Sanders, Kathleen is popping in some really great stuff. Rolling up newspapers into a flat wad and putting them under your clothes as a buffer to batons. I think that's really important if you're right-handed to like, pad your right arm so that if you shield yourself, you have some extra padding on that arm. That's a really excellent tactic. I think that's the only, hard propolis or soaked cottonwood buds in case someone gets their teeth knocked out or broken. That's another really nice thing to carry. Any of the resins really work. I've done that with even just myrrh gum powder to hold fillings in. And I always try to come prepared with some basic public health information, like who's the local dentist in the area who's really cool, just so I have some resources to refer people to, because that's, I have my public health eyes on when I'm out on a protest as well, and looking out for the health of everybody. And so if I can connect people with healers, then that's really great too.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that, it takes a team. And so as an herbalist, I work with doctors, nurses, naturopaths, Chinese medicine practitioners, Ayurvedic practitioners. I work with all sorts of people, because if somebody gets hurt, they're going to need a team of people, not just then, but afterwards too. And that's one of the things to think about, is that the aftercare with this is really important, and making sure that if you can pass somebody off to another person, that there's a team of people in a continuous check-in, because we don't want people to get left in trauma and then go on with that trauma in their bodies, in their life, and not being able to work through it and process it. So this stuff can be really intense, and that's I wanted to end kind of with maybe a little bit on just trauma and herbs to help with, or just practices to help with trauma release and trauma relief. And what I've loved about being in Actions is there's almost always mental health practitioners that are willing to do sliding scale and donate it. And now there's all this telehealth that can happen. And so making sure that you have a team that includes some talk therapy and people who can follow up with people and make sure that what they've experienced is able to be processed. And then I also like to carry around Rescue Remedy, because Rescue Remedy is a common thing that you can get at almost every grocery store. And it's a flower essence blend that's good for any kind of shock or trauma on an energetic level or emotional level. So if somebody has some sort of major trauma, put a little Rescue Remedy in their water and send them on their way. It's safe. There are not going to be any sort of contraindications, drug interactions that you have to worry about. And the worst thing that could happen is it doesn't work. I mean, that's could be, but it's something that I think that we should definitely try to include. I don't actually recommend too much with essential oils. A, they're not sustainable. B, there's a lot of MLM adulterations. You have to know how to use them really well to do it properly. I would prefer whole plants and or flower essences. But and some of you may not be interested in herbs, and that's fine. You can leave it to us who are. So, and we might leave lacerations to other people. So it's really where you're at. So keep that in mind. And we've had amazing teams with acupuncturists that went out to the field with us and were part of what we were doing. And so, yeah, we can all come together and create a team of people to keep everyone safer when we're going into these situations. Anything else, Greta?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything they want to add for this session that might be something they want to make sure and hear or say before we let you go? Oh, somebody wants to know the link for the eye wash video.
I'll go grab that right now.
Yeah, and we'll put that up there before we leave. And thank you for everyone for being a part of this. And I hope this gave you something to chew on. And we will be posting in the event once we discuss this. If there's anything that you'd want us to focus on, please put it in the Facebook event. What you thought, any feedback. I would really, our goal is just to try to bring more peace and safety to our communities that are working hard to make social change and social justice a reality. So, and justice in general. So, and I would love to offer whatever else in the future. So thank you. All right. I think that's it. I think we did it. Yay. On the fly. Less than 24 hours. And look at that. We got maybe we helped someone. Okay, bye y'all, and thank you again, and we will talk to folks in the future. Stay safe.
No, rock. That's so great. Well done. Well done. You did just pull that all together. Man, that was awesome. All right, peace.
Peace.
Everybody. Love.
Love. Thank you, Mary. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye, Virginia. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
I'm staying until you guys shut this thing down, since I'm the one who got us this sweet academic Zoom account. Also, we're still recording, so maybe let's stop me incriminating myself. Whatever, they don't care. It's brown.
I'm trying to go back and get this YouTube video for the from Stevie Ann.
Oh yeah.
I thought I had
post that on the event page too.
Shoot, yeah, I'm not finding it right now. Why not? Where is it? It's been a crazy 24 hours. That's all I can say. I've been under an avalanche of information, so I just lost track of where I had that thing stashed.
Cristal, I got you. I just downloaded the chat thing, and I'll send it over to your email right now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, here it is. Okay, I found it. I'm gonna okay, typing it in the chat. Boom. All right. There's the link to the pepper spray decontamination video that Stevie Ann made. Very respected street medic trainer in Oakland. All right, so we're good. I think we can stop the recording. Thank you.
I'm not. Is Nicole still here or did she leave?
I think she left.
Okay, great. We can just all leave now. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.